Good morning, paddlers. This is Gary again with another crap paddling video from the California Center for Research on Applied Paddling. I am on beautiful Ballona Creek on second to last day of the year, December 30th, 2022. Okay. And it's about 9 o'clock, something like that. What time is it? 9:39. Okay, so what I'm going to do on this one here, something I've been wanting to do for a long time, this is presenting what I'm calling a typology of different feathers, if you will. Okay, paddle feather, also called offset angle, paddle blade offset angle, also called pitch by some. But basically, it's different ways that you can set up your two-piece paddle so that the angles between the two paddles can differ. And you also have right and left hand control when you have feathers. So we're going to be looking at 6 types of feathered paddling, and then we're going to look at 4 types of zero feather paddling when there's no offset. And we'll be looking at 3 variables. This is part of my typology to know what the feather angle is from 0 to 90, which hand is the control hand, right or left, and then also what is the wrist alignment of the control hand when it's at the top to make sure that the release hand blade is getting into the water square. And that can be of 3 types. It can be extended. I can sort of show what that's going to look like here. Extended. Well, let me first show it this way. This is extended, knuckles back. This is neutral, wrist alignment. And this is flexed. Okay? So we have extended, neutral, flexed. And where this wrist has to be aligned in order to get the non-control hand blade square into the water depends upon the feather angle. So we're going to look at those 3. So we're going to start off with right hand control at what I'm calling a high feather angle. High feather angle to me will be from, let's divide it up into 3 ranges of 30 degrees. So we go from 0 to 30 degrees offset will be low. Actually, I'd say 1 to 30 because we want to leave 0 for zero feather. So 1 to 30 degrees offset will be a low feather angle. 30 to 60 will be a medium feather angle. And then 60 to 90, 90 being the maximum, will be a high feather angle. So we're going to actually look at 3 of those. Okay, so I'm going to line up my, oh, and to see what this looks like now, as you can see, I have paddle cam here. I have a shaft cam, I guess we can call it. So I was showing what my wrist looked like, extended, neutral, and flexed. What's it going to look like on the shaft cam? Well, if I'm neutral, you should see my forearm. Let me turn this down a little bit. You should see my forearm, because the paddle is fixed on the shaft, you should see my forearm coming off the right side of your screen at about 3 o'clock. If I'm extending, which you're going to see, it's coming up now, oh, somewhere like anywhere 1, 2 o'clock off the top right. And if I'm flexed, you're going to see my forearm coming off your screen in the lower right corner, down around 4:30, 5 o'clock, close to 6 maybe, depending on how much I'm flexing. So that's what it's going to look like. And I'm shooting on both the head cam and the shaft cam, and I will put the shaft cam footage at the end, or at least parts of it, to show each of the different types of wrist alignments resulting from these different feather angles and which hand is being under control. So I'm going to start off with a high right hand feather of about 85. That's the highest is indicated on my Antex. This is the baby gamut paddle with the small 600 square centimeter blades, and I have it set at its maximum of 200 centimeters total length. Okay, so we're starting off, I said it's 85, right hand, and I think you can see that from the head cam video, and certainly later on from the shaft cam video, that I need to extend my control hand, which is the top hand, wrist at the top, in order to get the release hand square into the water. Now you can't see the release hand because it's on the other side, but this will be, I'll say that again, this is 85 degrees right, and it should be extended. Okay, now I'm not going to move the camera over to the other side, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to move that over to left hand control, 85, okay? So now, see if I got that right. Yeah, this would be a little bit more of a challenge for me. But now my right hand is the release hand. And you can see how my forearm now is changing its orientation. All right, depending upon where it is in the stroke. And what's important, and you also notice that the release hand blade, as it goes forward, feathered through the air, is going through, leading with the top edge, the control hand leading with the bottom edge, which you can't see right now, but you could see it previously. Okay, and my left wrist is now the control wrist, and it is being extended at the top. And I should mention, I'm trying to get my top hand at about eye level, coming down to about shoulder level, because the wrist alignment will depend not only on the offset angle or the feather angle, but also on how high your top hand is going, how wide your boat is, how long your paddle is, how long your arms are, all kinds of other things. But up about 60 to 90 somewhere, you should be extending your wrist on the control hand. Okay, let's try to move through the rest of these more quickly. Make sure I have this shown for the, just do this a little bit more. Again, this is 85 degrees left hand control. And my right hand, where the shaft cam is, you should see that as being the release hand. Okay, so now I'm going to change the feather. I'm going to go back to right hand, and I'm going to go into the medium range, someplace between, I said, 30 to 60, someplace about there. Well, we'll see what happens. So this is about, only 40 is here. 30 would be someplace about there. 30 to 60. Let me put it on 40. Okay, and now I have right hand control once again. And now we're interested in looking at the alignment of my right wrist. It should be pretty close to neutral. And it should stay that way, mostly throughout the stroke. So you should see if it is indeed neutral, and it'll be interesting to check that on the shaft camera, it should remain coming off the right of your screen at about 3 o'clock. That should be neutral, and then you can see what happens if that was 40 degrees right. I'm going to go 40 degrees left. Again, now my left hand is the control hand, and you will see my right hand releasing. Be interesting to see how much actually should be releasing through. Whoa, I just hit something there. But my rudder, it was soft. Hope it wasn't a body or anything like that. Okay, so that's left hand, medium offset at 40 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to go right hand. I'm going to go low. I'm going to go quite low here. I'm going to go something like 20 right hand control. Now, if I get low enough, my top hand, control hand, which is my right hand, you're looking at it with the shaft camera, should start to have to flex, right? So I'm not sure if this is low enough, but we'll certainly see that when I get down to 0. So this is a low feather angle of 20 degrees right hand control. It'll be interesting to see what my wrist is doing when I look at the shaft cam, and I'll put that at the end of this video. Okay, now I'm going to go 20 degrees left. Now my left hand control, and you'll see my right wrist now being the release hand. Okay. So those are the 6 types of feathered paddling. All right. It is high feather, which gives you an extended wrist. So right and left, those are 2. Medium feather, which would give you somewhere in there between 30 and 60 degrees, a neutral wrist, also right and left, and then the last 2 being low feather, somewhere between 1 and 30 left and right, and that should start getting you into a flex wrist control at the top. Now, once we move to 0, interesting things happen. Okay, so this is 0 feather. This is how paddling started, and it still is that way with the Greenland paddle. I'm going to take a break here to go backwards a little bit because I think I have some garbage on my rudder. Sometimes when I do this, I see a plastic bag or something float by. Okay, well, we'll see what that is. I think there was something there. So now we're 0 feather. So now we're symmetrical, and that opens up some interesting things. So I mentioned the Greenland paddle and the Alaskan Aleutian paddle. They have 0 feather, and I think that's how European paddling started too, the North American. So now at a low angle, this works just fine. And I'm actually doing what I'm calling 2-hand control. So both hands are controlling. Okay? So it's very low. As I bring up the angle of the paddling, as I get my hand further up to eye level, with 2-hand control, you should see my right wrist flexing at the top. And that means it's coming down about 4 or 5 o'clock off the lower right hand corner of your screen, and my left hand is doing the same. Okay? Now, there's really no reason to flex both wrists, so I'm going to now relax my right wrist, and I'm doing now 1-hand control, left hand control, and you can see my right wrist is now releasing, so you should see various angles of the paddle to my wrist, but the wrist to the shaft should remain relatively neutral, coming out at about 3 o'clock. Now, without missing a beat, I'm going to go right hand control. Should look the same on the shaft cam as 2-hand control. I'm releasing with my left hand, which you can't see on the shaft camera. Okay, so those are 3. Now we also have a 4th 0 feather, and that is alternating hand control. So that means shifting control from one hand to the other. As a hand becomes the stroke side hand, it will take over control, and typically that passing of control is done as the paddle becomes level, because it's only at that time that the top edge my knuckles of the right hand, knuckles of the left hand, and left paddle blade are all lined up. So that's where I want to sort of send control over to the other side. So one of the things that's interesting is figuring out what kind of control are you using if you're paddling zero feather. It may not be obvious from just looking at your wrist. It may not be obvious from the feel of the paddle shaft, whether it feels solid or rotating, although you may be able to tell. I think using the shaft camera is the way to go. And put it on both sides and paddle and see. If you notice that both hands are controlling, they're not moving around, that means you got two-hand control. If you see one hand but not the other is releasing, the other one is fixed, right? One hand is fixed, the other one is doing this. You have one-hand control, left or right, and if both are moving a little bit, right, within the same stroke cycle, you have dual-hand control. Okay, so there you go. I've refrained from saying anything about the advantages or disadvantages of the 10 feather types, or yeah, the 10 different feather types, and I will save that for a following video. This is the third in a series of videos on feather, and there may be there'll be at least one more, I know that, where I will talk about the advantages and disadvantages, and there'll probably be a fifth as well when I come up with some new ways of feathering and paddling with feather that I've been working on. Okay, so I think that's it for now. Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody, and hopefully 2023 will bring you happiness and contentment and new exciting experiences on the water. So signing off, Gary.